Thanks everyone for being here. We're going to get started. And quick show of hands virtually or in the chat. How many of you have inspection data sitting in a folder somewhere you know you should be doing something with, but you just haven't gotten to yet? I think we're all really good at collecting the data. We have efficient, field crews out there, but what do you do next? We're usually not short on data. I see the hands going up. Thanks everyone. You've got CCTV inspections, GIS layers, condition reports, right? There's data all over the place, but taking all of that siloed, spread out data, they may not even live all in the same building, let alone in the same application. Turn that into action, into prioritized plan, a budget request, an RFP, can take months or even years. We all see manual assessments done in Excel, disconnected workflows between inspections, analysis, planning. And then by the time we finally finish the report, get budget approved, that data is outdated and we're going back to reinspect that asset to see what it looks like now that we're thinking about rehabbing it. Meanwhile, pipes keep aging, failures keep happening, and you're stuck waiting. So we all know the problem, the cost of emergency repairs instead of planned rehab, capital budgets spent on the wrong assets, fixing urgent defect that came in yesterday versus the important and the urgent, focusing on the assets that carry the highest risk. Compliance pressures mounting, staff burnout on manual work, getting stuck in the reactive, I think is a big theme that we all hear quite a bit. So what if I told you in the next 40 minutes, we're going to show you how to go from raw inspection data to a complete fundable engineering report? That's what we're going to focus on today. Joining me is Eric Sullivan. He's our Director of Strategic Development at Sewer AI, one of the first members of the Sewer AI team. He spent nearly 20 years working with utilities, consulting engineers, and contractors, working on condition assessment and trenchless rehab projects. He's also been an ASCO certified trainer since 2012, just general wealth of knowledge in all things sewer inspection, rehab. We're really, really pleased to have him on the call with us today and at Sewer AI. We also have Sean King. He's our product manager, been working on the risk and rehab product with us. So what are we going to see today? We're going to see how Sewer AI connects the dots from inspection to risk to action. Right, we're taking that next step beyond knowing what's going on in the system is useful, but it doesn't actually change anything in the system. It doesn't reduce our risk, doesn't fix the problems, doesn't reduce I&I. We have to use that data to turn it quickly into a plan of what to do next. We'll also look at a live demo of our smart project builder, which is going to be generating a complete and defendable rehab plan. And we'll look at how utilities are finally closing the gap between knowing where the risk is and actually fixing it. This is more important than ever because aging infrastructure, it's not slowing down, it's not fixing itself. Staff capacity is not growing. Most municipalities, even services contractors, engineering firms are all looking at how to do more with less. But the tools you need to work smarter, they're finally here. Chat with other attendees, say hello, share where you're joining from, what kind of work you do. Right? Part of our mission at Sewer AI is to create an environment, a culture, an area where people can learn best practices from others. Please answer our post-webinar survey. Your feedback helps us shape future sessions. And then finally, today's session is going to be recorded, so don't worry, you'll get the full replay in your inbox automatically afterwards. So what are we going to talk about today? What's the order of events? First, we'll start with where we've been, quick context on the Sewer AI platform, where we are now, live demo of risk and rehab and our smart project builder tool that we're launching today, where you can go, Q&A and next steps. And then please keep those questions coming in the Q&A box. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Eric Sullivan, to take us in to talk a bit about where Sewer AI has been.
Thanks, Tim. Really great to be here, everybody. So real quick on who we are, because context matters. For the past 7+ years, we've been working with utilities, sewer services contractors, consulting engineers across the US and Canada. So in other words, these are the people that are capturing the CCTV data, the people who manage the data and submit the NASCO deliverables, and the people who actually need to do something with those deliverables. So right now we've got well over 250 million linear feet of pipe data sitting in the platform under management. That's main lines, laterals, as well as more than 300,000 manholes. So we've completed over 750,000 NASCO surveys so far. Currently, that's over 40 million linear feet every year through the use of our AI-assisted autocode process, that tool. And currently on an average turnaround of about 5 business days. So all this data, it isn't just parked there in storage. It's being used and collaborated on, and it feeds into the insights for asset planning, which we'll take a look at. Also, with respect to customer enablement, we take it very seriously. What that looks like is sub-minute in-platform responsiveness, and also less than half an hour for resolution of technical tickets, technical issues. And our focus on customer response and issue resolution, it's a pretty important aspect of the fact that people are actually running these projects and they need this to work. They're not just archiving data. So Pioneer is a living, breathing, always on platform that we've been running. So the punchline is, it's not a lab environment. This is productionized at scale across many cities, engineering firms, and services contractors that you all may know. So this is the reality that utilities are working in right now. A lot of this infrastructure, it was built for a very different era, 50 to 100 plus years ago, right? When systems were smaller, demand was lower, and the consequences of delay were not what they are today, right? So at the same time, the data needed to manage these systems is often scattered. It lives in filing cabinets, in spreadsheets, in disconnected databases, and it's also across multiple teams. So even when the information exists, it's still hard to turn it into timely decisions, right? So while that's happening, failures are accelerating, right? Assets are deteriorating actually faster than many systems can be renewed, or whether they can be replaced, or even properly prioritized in some cases. So the other challenge is that many teams are still relying on tools and workflows that were never really designed for this level of complexity or scale or collaboration, right? So people who are doing the best that they can, they're often actually doing it inside of processes that keep them stuck in a reactive mode, right? And the impact is real. Emergency repairs are more expensive than planned maintenance, right? Budgets get consumed up by crisis response instead of strategic investment. And every major failure disrupts daily life, damages the environment, and it erodes public trust in these essential services. So when we talk about modernizing this workflow, that's the real issue that we're trying to solve, right? Not just storing inspection data, but helping utilities move out of reactive decision-making and into more defensible, proactive ways to plan, right? So that's exactly why we built Pioneer as that single source of truth, right? So why we built it this way is because the traditional model that everybody here, has kind of lived through is kind of like data on trucks, data on thumb drives, different contractors coding at different quality levels and levels of experience, right? And then someone several months later has to make rehab plans off of this incomplete, inconsistent data, right? So it does not really work when you're trying to defend a capital plan or apply for grant funding. So we built one place, Pioneer, right, for inspection data to land, to get processed into a standardized format, and to be shared by utilities, engineers, and contractors, right? That's the single source of truth part. So once it's in there, you've got access to 2 engines, the first being autocode, and the second being risk and rehab. Our customers, in a matter of days, can go from initial data collection and upload to detailed capital improvement plans every time. But it all starts with getting the video and the inspection data into the cloud. With Pioneer, everything lands in one secure cloud-based environment where it's instantly accessible to everyone who needs it, contractors, engineers, utility staff, without these bottlenecks. And one thing that sets us apart is that Sewer AI is the only sewer software platform in North America with a formal SOC 2 Type 2 attestation. That's an independent audit of our security, availability, data integrity controls. It's the same standard that major financial institutions use. And for anyone who wants to see the details of, about all that, Michaela can share our trust site, link to it in the webinar chat here. So when you're managing critical infrastructure data, whether it's CCTV data or GIS layers or rehab plans, you're not just getting convenience, you're getting verified trust and compliance that no other vendor in this space has. Okay, AutoCode is our AI-assisted process for condition assessment. It follows NASCO guidelines. We run computer vision on the video to find the defects automatically. And then NASCO certified reviewers QC it and finish it. So you get both speed and compliance with industry guidelines. And why do utilities and contractors like it? Well, it's because the field crew doesn't have to stop the camera crawler every few feet to manually type codes in while they've set up traffic control, while they're dewatering the pipe using a vac truck that's burning money and using up water. They can film the pipe, they can upload, and let our technologies do the heavy lifting. And on the engineering and asset planning side, it means that you're not re-watching all these videos just to double check if it's a crack versus a fracture and all the other 220 plus codes, right? So instead, you get the more consistent data that you've had, and you get your valuable time back. So let's talk about risk and rehab now. Once the data is in the platform and AutoCode has completed the condition assessment, this is where it starts to get fun, right? The risk and rehab recommendation engine takes the CCTV and NASCO data, the GIS layers of the sewer or stormwater system, other geospatial data that we've pulled together, and a set of likelihood of failure and consequence of failure factors, which we call the risk recipe, right? And it scores the whole system. Then it runs that through either a series of decision trees or an AI large language model, LLM powered recommendation based around whether like this pipe should be lined or point repaired or open cut, or whether it should be cleaned or only cleaned very carefully, or whether cutting or milling is needed, right? You know, if it requires a civil engineer to review due to nuances, as well as recommendations on where and when you should inspect next, right? So the other big thing, and this came right from customers, is that you can bring your own logic. If you're an engineering firm or a large utility that already has a risk recipe, you can use that model right in this platform. And something new that we're especially proud of is the Pioneer Structural Benchmark, because basically we've processed more than 500,000 NASCO surveys. Yeah, 750,000 NASCO surveys. That's right. Yeah. So every time a new inspection comes in, it's automatically compared against the broader aggregate data set, right? And that means that the platform isn't just analyzing your city, it's drawing on crowdsourced insights from across North America to show how your assets stack up against similar pipes elsewhere. So rather than just talking about it, we're going to go ahead and show it to you now. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sean. He's going to jump into the live risk and rehab environment and walk through the map view, the dashboard view, and how these decision tree outputs and the AI recommendations actually render. Go ahead, Sean.
Thanks, Eric. Let me share my screen here. Great. So we are looking at our risk map here on Pioneer. Right now, we're looking at only inspected assets. For today, I'm going to focus on inspected assets. And I'm looking at these assets based on their risk score. So you can see here, there's a few that are red, which have a higher risk score. As it gets lower, it gets greener. There's quite a few risky pipes here in the city, obviously. And as Eric mentioned, this risk score is a calculation that we do based off inspection data and also geospatial data to give you that risk score. You are able to do a lot of filtering on this map to find what you're looking for and dig into the data. So, for example, if I want to look at just VCP, vitrified clay pipe, I could do that, and it will automatically filter for me. Or let's say I want to just focus on my riskiest pipes. I can just filter for that. So a lot of functionality here in our filtering on the map. And you can click into each asset as well. Eric had showed that what we call an asset details page. So if I zoom down here, I'm gonna click this pipe here. And we have a quick summary overview of what we're looking at here. But if I want to view more information, I come up to this asset details page. I can see the total risk score. I can see any work plans that have been set, which we're going to talk about shortly, which is a new feature we're offering. I can see where it is on the map, inspection header information, If I scroll down, I can even click and review the video of this inspection. So really diving in, digging deep, getting proactive with your data and your assets. I'm going to go back to the map. If you do want to look at the data in more of a table view, you're also able to do that. We'll just switch over there. Give it 1 second to load. Cool. So again, we're not, we're looking at the data here. We're looking at quite a lot of data associated with each asset. Here's that structural benchmark Eric was talking about. Also, you can view all the data associated with it geospatially. We've brought in quite a lot of national data into our system. So things like water bodies, hospitals, so that data you don't have to bring in here. We already have that. You can already get a really strong consequence of failure score just based on what we have in our system. Again, we have lots of the same filters, all the same filters here on the table, so you can sort your data as you need and look up what you're looking for. We also have these quick filters. So let's say you're looking at, you just want to see your candidates for CIPP lining. You can also quickly filter down and find those. Give it a second to load here. And you can see it went down to 166 assets that via decision tree recommendation, these are good candidates for CIPP lining. I'm going to clear that. So the other thing Eric had mentioned is our risk recipe. So we know, every city's unique. And part of that is we wanted to add flexibility where you could adjust what goes into the calculation. So if I click here, you're able to adjust the sums and the weight of the scoring into the risk recipe calculation. Anything from age of asset, diameter. Then you can simply move, maybe you live in a newer city, this is too high. And, we don't have any pipes older than 70. And then you could save that as a new recipe and access that whenever you need to. The other thing Eric had mentioned as well, too, I want to touch on one more thing. The consequence of failure you can also change. So let's say you're, not as concerned with waterway proximity. Again, you can adjust those barriers that are going into that calculation to change the weight of waterway proximity into that risk score. And the last thing I wanted to point out here is right now we're looking at decision tree recommendations. So this is the more traditional method of getting to a rehab recommendation. And you can click into these pills and you can understand how we derived to that score. You can even view a full decision tree as to why these recommendations were applied to this asset. Pretty cool. And then I do want to show you can also, if you don't want to use decision tree, you can use our AI recommendation engine. I'm going to switch over to that. And similarity, you can click in and you can understand why the AI came to this decision. We'll click this one. I mean, it goes pretty in depth here as to why these are the recommended actions, including pictures. You can also type and chat with the AI to understand even more why this decision was made. A new feature we've recently added is called work plan. You can see it here. I've already made some work plans, but this is where you can get really proactive, right? You televise, the data is uploaded to the cloud, it's auto-coded, it's run through our risk engine. Within days, you're getting recommendations. And then almost instantly, you could come in, look at that data, and you can create a plan of action. So what that looks like is, I'll use this one as an example. The AI recommended CIPP point repair. Okay, I can click here, I can look at the video, I can understand what's going on. And I go, great, this looks good. I'd like to set a work plan now. So I can simply come in here Again, I can take what we recommended, the AI did, or the decision tree. I can say, great, that looks awesome. I can enter a cost. It's optional. I could add in comments as well. But if I didn't want to take those recommendations, there are other actions you can take. We have quite a long list from O&M, repair, rehab, replace. There's one here, which is to replace it, other, and you can even type in your own, maybe it's, you want to do a smoke test. And you can add that in as well. And again, you can enter cost or comments. You can see the cost here right next to this one. And you can also click this little bubble and see the comments.
I just wanted to pop in quickly here. I think this is an important spot to the place that we see risk and rehab from Pioneer and Smart Project Builder is to be a tool to help you get through all the manual analysis and QC and filtering of the data to the point of approving, tweaking, or changing a decision. So that's where you can see we've been intentional about, hey, this is the recommendation in this column, but the work plan is what the engineer has used their knowledge, or the asset manager, or the person with knowledge of the system has used their specific experience, knowledge, expertise to say, this is what is going to work best for our utility. So, thank you for the recommendation. I'm going to take this, but add a couple pieces to it, or tweak this, because when we do this type of work, we need this extra piece to it. And that way we're making sure that we're helping you get to a decision faster, but not completely taking over the decision process entirely. Just want to pop in and say that, Sean. I'll pass back to you.
No, yeah. Thanks, Tim. Okay, I'm going to show us our next feature here. So we just introduced Smart Project Builder, which allows you to take this data, interact with an AI, and generate reports that typically could have taken weeks or months to produce that now you can literally do in minutes. So I'm going to show you how that works. So it's analyzing our data. Cool. It's identified some risky assets for us, and it's given me some questions here on defining a project scope I'd like to focus on. So I'm going to follow up with this and say, I actually want to focus on, let's focus on CIPP lining repairs. And I have a budget limit of $150,000. So the AI will analyze this data. It's looking at the recommendations that we have put out there, and it's starting to gather information. Cool. I'm going to review this real quick. This is looking good. This looks good. Let's make a report. Please include a map of the assets.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Quick question. Where do the pricing assumptions come from for the tool?
Yeah, so we're using national averages for the pricing right now, and so that's where we're getting that. But we are working in the future on adding in more flexibility to the cost, where you could enter in your own cost that we would store and then would be part of the analysis going forward.
Yeah, actually, there's a cost instruction in the upper right there that you could maybe reveal.
Sure.
Yeah.
I will get to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're looking at the report that we've generated now. We have a project overview. It's generated a map view of the assets for us to focus on. It's identified some super high priority ones, and it's giving a table overview. And I actually like it when there's the video links in the table. So I'm going to ask it to add that. Please add inspection video links to the table. Assets to. So you can edit the document via the chat here. Give it a second. And I'll certainly go over the cost input that you're able to put in as well too. Cool. So it's added the links to the video. And I'll give this document a read through one more time, but it's looking good. And at this point, if I like what I'm seeing, I can go great. I can print it, or you can save it as a PDF and you're able to email it and share it out to whoever you need to share it to. Or maybe put it in a slide deck if you're taking this to a board, or maybe to your engineer. So as Eric mentioned, we are using national averages for the cost, but you do have the ability here. So you have this little $sign here. You are able to add in new cost instructions. You can give it a name of CIPP lining work, add it to your account, and you can enter in our region, we price CIPP lining at, I'm going to make up another number here, $50 per LF. And you can create instructions. You can apply that instruction. You can edit it further. Now, when you're in your document and you're referring to the price, you can then tell the AI, hey, can you please refer to my CIPP lining work cost? And it will take that cost information and apply it to your document. So it's a really powerful, flexible tool. Again, able to take your data that you have in our system. You can bring in, your own cost analysis or costing prices into it as well too, to quickly generate these reports that you can then share with engineering firms, share with the board. Again, really be proactive in taking action in maintaining your sewer system. And with that, I'm going to pass it back off to Tim.
Before we open it up, I want to just ground this in some, real utilities, what they're actually telling us, right? You've got folks like City of Houston, Texas, whose consent decree we're supporting. You've got folks like Delcora, Mobile, Alabama, Sonoma Water, literally said risk and rehab is changing the way that they assign their work. So this isn't just cool AI, it's helping people avoid cleaning and rehabbing good pipe so that they can prioritize their real actual problems and defend their rehab budgets. And contractors also are finding value in this too. Actually, Michaela, if you want to skip to the next slide, I think there's, so, contractors leveraging risk and rehab as a find it, fix it tool, right? To better help them serve their customers and gain a competitive edge, drive business growth, right? These are quotes from two of our awesome customers, Mike Ingham from HK Solutions and Mr. Rich Knapp from Purus, who's actually here today. I saw you asked a question earlier. So hi, Rich. They just did a webinar with us a few months ago, right? Let's actually, Michaela, could you roll that clip?
These are your top assets, how much it's going to cost, the associated risk, and we kept it within an 80 to 100K budget.
That's insane.
What I really like is it allows you to show the story of why you're spending money on capital improvements for horizontal infrastructure where you're doing it. This is why we're investing $1 million here. You can make your case to commissioners quite quick and easy.
My thing is, like, if we were to use software like this, we don't have to have our guys spend time on the PACP part of it.
Right.
And it kind of is helpful in that sense. But the thing that is seeming more helpful to me is when I was doing our analysis of how much would a sewer program cost, and if we were to farm out for somebody to take all of the video data and say, we need to repair all of these pipes and here's the plan.
I can definitely see the value. So this helps me when capital budget season rolls around and I start throwing numbers around.
These reports are phenomenal for going to the board and saying, hey, look, these are really bad sewer lines or points of failure that we need to address. I mean, it lists it out for you and gives you everything you need to argue your case for fixing something.
I'm just seeing more of what I was thinking already. This would be the great tool to get us started on a program without a learning curve. It's just showing it more and more.
Overall, it puts us into the next step of maintaining our system. I think the whole package is good. That would probably be my sticking point.
That's crazy. That's insane.
All right. It's crazy, it's insane, and it's here. Risk and Rehab is live with Smart Project Builder. Do a quick recap on what we just saw. Sean walked us through. We had a constraint of $100,000 budget. Oftentimes, again, reiterating what we said in the beginning, we all have limited budgets, limited staff, limited ability to execute work. How do we make sure that 100,000 budget or whatever it is we're planning for, how do we make sure those dollars are spent reducing the riskiest assets, getting the risk out of our system, right? Whether that's I&I, whether you want to customize your risk recipe to be focused on root control, et cetera, whatever matters most to you, that's what feeds into the risk. And you can have a clear picture of knowing you're operating the system from a perspective of, I know where the risk in my system is, and I have a plan that's budgeted to reduce it. So Smart Project Builder helped us take all the data and look across the whole system, create the plan, turn into a board approval ready document with a summary of why we're inspecting, why we're repairing these assets, why we've chosen them, some details about them, what that's going to do for our system by spending the money to rehab these assets. And then we also saw how it flows into individual asset work plans that your team can control. So I think what you just saw and what we've seen from our early adopters is a tool that takes you from weeks and what would we spend a lot of time, months, weeks, years, down into a couple days. You get outputs right away, something you can then take through the rest of your process. Okay, I know we threw a lot at you. I think we have a couple questions here, but let's open it up for questions. Continue to post questions. I think the first one I see in the Q&A section is, how can we approach municipalities with concerns about data privacy regards to this tool? So the first place I'd go is, we're the only software vendor in the CCTV inspection space with both a SOC 2 and ISO 27001 compliance. This is about data security and privacy. Another thing I hear, this is not, uploading your inspection data or interacting with the Smart Project Builder is not making your data public. This is not floating out into the open universe of AI knowledge. And also, we can help you in those conversations too, right? We have engineers, we have an IT team that we can lean in and go through the details of municipalities with their IT teams and help them get comfortable. The next question I see is there any functionality to export data and layers from your GIS map for teams, firms that do more analysis with Esri products? It'll be helpful to attach reports to pipes and manholes by the masses in the database. Yes, there is. In that risk table or in our regular inspection maps, you have the ability to download a GeoJSON directly from there. We did see a question in the chat about manholes. Manholes are going to be a fast follow to what we currently have set up for main lines and laterals. So in the coming months, we expect to have risk and rehab and Smart Project Builder access for manhole inspections as well. All right.
Tim, I answered a question kind of out of order just because I'm scrolling here and I missed Ava's first question, so I answered them in reverse order.
All right. Do you want to read it out loud for everyone's benefit?
Oh, now you're really testing my ability to scroll to the right part of this expansive chat that we have. It's great to get this input here. Anyway, so yeah, Ava had asked essentially about like the likelihood of failure, consequence of failure, risk factors, right? So those risk factors can be configured and weighted by the user as custom risk recipes. We would be more than happy to go deeper with anybody that is interested as far as how you can configure the risk recipes. There's a number of them specific to LOF and a number specific to COF, right? Anywhere from age of the asset to diameter pipe to depth of pipe, length of pipe, the various materials. There's, of course, the PACP generated LOF score too. That's a part of it. And then there's the Pioneer structural benchmark, which we did touch on earlier and is kind of a differentiator from the platform, right? So that's comparing that pipe against the aggregate average. So you could use a variety of those, all of them, or only a few if you want, inside of your risk recipe. So that's with respect to LOF. With COF, it's a little bit more oriented towards the geospatial data, right? The pipe's proximity to hospitals, schools, waterways, the diameter of the pipe, whether or not it is intersecting with a road and what kind of road, and or like a rail corridor, and then also the land use overlap, various different categories of land use, right? Like a public park versus commercial zone versus government property, et cetera. So there's a lot of different things you can do to customize.
All right, I'm going to Matthew Malone's question. Is there a way to integrate proximity of assets and also capital optimization? For example, you may not select a pipe since it is lower than the risk threshold, say risk level 3 when the threshold is 4, but there are level 3 pipes on either side of the level 4 pipe. Okay, so Matthew's saying, hey, economies of scale and being in reducing mobilization costs. Yes, I think 2 ways to do that. One, either through the decision tree, right? You can set parameters around is a pipe within a certain radius also being rehabbed, and then you lower your tolerance on what's going to be included. That's like the logic decision tree. Also, you can do the same thing in the smart project builder, right? This is just prompting it. Hey, create me a rehab project. I want to focus on fixing highest risk assets, but I am also very interested in reducing the cost of breakdown and remobilization. And I'm willing to rehab assets of lower risk down to this level that are within an X proximity. And the smart project builder, that's all it needs to recalibrate its thinking.
Yeah, it's a great idea for prompting it. Kind of relatedly, we had a question from Jacob. Is there a way to group rehabs by type, right? Because some contractor vendors might specialize in particular repairs. Sean, I saw that you answered that, I believe. Yeah, the answer is definitely yes. So there's a variety of dynamic ways that you can filter and query for specific rehab outcomes and specific methods, and then, in bulk, send them to a third party or create different exports and things like that.
Okay, I think I'm going to answer 2 questions in one here. Can the application look at existing data, age, material conditions, and propose assets that should be inspected? Use the known to predict where we should investigate. Then I'm also going to answer, I think there's another question about how does it deal with selection bias of usually assets are chosen to be inspected based on perceived risk. So yes, we do have, there's a toggle in the tool. You can just look at risk for uninspected assets only, right? So many of the variables that go into likelihood and consequence of failure are not predicated on an inspection being done on them. This is about their location in the physical world, their size, their age, their material. Are they near a waterway? Are they under a railroad? All of these things raise them up on the risk scale, which shows, hey, based on the attributes of this pipe, there is significant risk here. We have no inspection. We should go get an inspection done so we can either use the inspection to lower the risk or confirm that, yes, we need to take an action here. There's a button in the risk and rehab table that Sean showed that's got preset filters. All it says is inspect next. If you click on that, you'll just have a list produced for you of the highest risk uninspected assets. All right.
Yeah, and I know that Ava had a very similar question about that. So yeah, there are risk recipes that enable guidance for those situations where you're looking to prioritize where should we inspect. Inspection data does not exist yet. Yeah.
Okay, Samuel Johnson asked, point repairs often required prior to CIPP. Does a smart project builder include recommendation for location, distance to distance for point repairs?
Can I take that
Yes.
one? Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just did this morning on a call, so I'll give a brief answer then pass to you, Eric. Yes, we were looking at some data from someone who had submitted some data for a test. The pipe was indicated that manhole to manhole lining was recommended, but in one section of it, it had a deformed rigid 25% observation and also a protruding tap. So in the smart project builder, without me having to really recommend anything or prompt it, it was saying, before you line it, you need to put a point repair here to fix the deformed rigid section, and you need to cut this tap back. The approach is included in the smart project builder. Eric?
Yeah, other factors too, such as like groundwater. The platform will recommend, grouting plus CIPP, different milling and cutting that may be needed if there's calcium or if there's protruding taps on the line, etc.
Okay. Are there any sort of color-coded, time-based options? Eric, this sounds like a question for you. Example, date of last inspection compared to current date, or some visual of what needs to be inspected next based on current rotation or schedule.
There's a way in the platform to apply various different custom tags or labels to different assets, and you can definitely segment them by various different inspection cycles in the platform. And again, we could probably take this offline into a deeper dive where we could show some ideal configurations of risk recipes that would also help inform inspection cycles too. But yeah, once you've determined a pipe needs to be inspected in year one of your program, and if it's, yes, there's ways to programmatically assign those labels across many, many different pipes or entire basins. That gets a little bit more into using the map tools too, to be honest. And we just got a few. Sanitary sewer lines need to be televised and the PACP data needs to be provided. What is the pricing? Yeah, well, we can definitely talk about pricing when it's on a project specific basis and those types of things. Maybe I'll let Tim kind of give a reply.
Yeah, I'll take pricing after we do questions. I'll do
Yeah.
pricing.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thanks.
But yeah, maybe
Integrations.
to answer the rest of that question, what's needed to like start getting some outputs here? The prerequisite, a GIS shapefile or a shared layer is required. That way, that's where we pull a lot of our information about the size, the age, the material, where it's located. Is it near any major roads or highways, waterways? So GIS layer, and just the GIS layer by itself will let us get some outputs of risk for uninspected assets. And then if you also then sharing NASCO databases and videos helps us take it to the next level of now we know the inspection data as well as the asset attributes as well to get the best picture of risk. I think the other thing to call out, historical data that's already been coded. Can I upload that and get a baseline in Smart Project Builder, in Risk and Rehab of my whole system? When we get to price, I'll cover it some more, but the price of Risk and Rehab and Smart Project Builder is not based on total linear feet in the system. We have specific pricing based on utility size for population served, and we are encouraging the best outcome for utilities is to have a solid baseline of data over time in Pioneer. We provide unlimited cloud storage, so there's no extra cost for bringing more data into Pioneer to get better outputs for Risk and Rehab or have a real source of truth system.
We got a question about integrations or APIs. Do y'all see that one too? And we got 4 additional ones. Regarding API integration, so it's an API-based platform that we have. We actually just overhauled our API library recently and really expanded its capabilities. We have partnerships in place with CityWorks, Cartograph. There's a few other vendors out there that we're also in talks with and working on road mapping those different integrations too. So anyone out there who's got specific requests around, hey, could you integrate with so-and-so work order platform? We'd certainly like to know that. Helps us prioritize better.
Wesley asked an important question. Do I have to use autocode to get Risk and Rehab outputs? The answer is no. Manually coded data in Pioneer can produce Risk and Rehab outputs. You do not have to re-autocode already collected data. Of course, we're of the position that autocode, if there's any question about the quality of the condition assessment data over time, autocode is the best way to get it up to one uniform and accurate standard, but you're not beholden to autocoding data to get the outputs that you just saw in this webinar today. Yes, works for storm and sanitary.
William had a question about Risk and Rehab for manholes. Right now, we don't have that, but it is on our product roadmap to offer that very soon.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So here's what we have today to offer. We have 2 ways to get started right away. One, costs nothing. This is a launch offer where you can get a preliminary rehab plan. So we'll give you risk scored priority for your assets, structural benchmark score versus national averages, preliminary budget estimates, a color-coded visual map, and an executive summary PDF, like the output you saw. Michaela, what's the best way for someone to opt into the preliminary rehab plan?
I will go ahead and send a link in the chat where you can fill out a form, or there will be a survey that pops up on your screen as you close this webinar. And there's also a question in there that you can indicate you're interested to get this free report.
Yeah, awesome. And once you raise your hand for that, there are, as we mentioned, some pieces of information we need from you, like a small basin, like access to a shape file, so we can get that geospatial information, maybe the database the last time you inspected it. That's all we'll need, and we'll be able to output a report for you and set you up your own demo environment where you can see what this looks like on your own data. The other piece, we have a launch offer. These are starter bundles where we are packaging up licenses, auto code, risk and rehab. And as I mentioned before, they're not based on total linear footage. What we've done is segmented based on what's right for utilities of all sizes, so that even small utilities can take advantage of this. Savings are up to 52% off of regular list pricing because we've rolled things in, and really risk and rehab is in there for free for the first year. So if this is something of interest to you, if you're wondering, hey, is there a way, is this going to be too expensive for me? That sounds like you're interested enough to engage in a short chat with us where you can just get a quick understanding of what you guys need, what type of utility you are, how you're set up, and then we'll quickly give you a sense of what the price is. I know that's a bummer not to have a widespread price shouted out across the webinar, but we've really been thoughtful about the way we've packaged these things and set it up, especially the launch offer, so that utilities of each size are getting value in packages that are right for them, rather than taking a one size fits all or a flat linear foot type approach. And the goal there was really to make sure that smaller utilities are not priced out of getting significant value when they're often facing these issues the most. Limited resources, not engineering staff that can work on these things consistently. Yes, step one, doesn't cost you anything. Opt into the preliminary rehab plan. We'll work with you. It can serve as a demo on your own data. Option two, engage with us, talk about the starter bundles. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks to Sean, Eric, and of course, thank you to Michaela for putting this together, building the audience, building the group here. And please, if there's any questions we didn't get to, or something you want to engage with an individual conversation, we'd love to keep talking.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really appreciate everybody who participated, all the great questions, very thoughtful questions. We're here for the feedback. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.
Tim. Bye.